All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning and hello everybody. Sean with Flux here. Thank you for joining me today for part 2 of our email alerts overview webinar. Today we'll be going over how to configure advanced emails and the best practices in managing your emails in Flux. If you should have any questions at any time during the session, please jot those down in the questions section. We'll be saving the last few minutes to address these questions, but feel free to enter them as you think of them. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so in this email alerts webinar, we'll be going over the following: how to enable alerts, state-based emails, time-based emails, filters in an email, editing the body of your email, and then managing your queue. And as I said earlier, I'll be addressing all of your questions at the end of the overview. Before going into the email themselves, we should start with how to enable email alerts altogether. This may be a review for most of you, but let's take a look at where you can do this. So first, you'll want to go into the admin panel and then go into plugins in the left column. Then on the integrations tab, the first option should be alerts. Click into this and you'll see a lone checkbox that is used to toggle the alerts on or off. You'll want to make sure that it is checked. All right, now that we've gone ahead and enabled alerts, let's go over the different type of email alerts that we support at Flux. The first email alert type that I'll go over is our state-driven alerts. These are emails that would generate based on a record entering a workflow state. A use case for this would be, let's say, your grantee has submitted a request, and this request is now being reviewed by your staff. You would have a workflow state that may be called pending internal review. Once this record enters that state, you can have an email that would let a grantee know that you've received the request and that your staff is currently reviewing. So let's take a look at how to set this up. So back in the admin panel, you'll need to navigate to the card documents on the left-hand column. You're going to select the card model. In this instance, we'll start with a grant request. And then after you've selected that, we're selecting it on the one that you want to actually make the email for, and then you're going to click into the email tab. You'll then want to click the new email alert button at the bottom of the screen. This will give you an email for you to start configuring. First, you're going to start by giving it a name and a label. And now that we've done that, let's make it a state-driven email. To do this, you'll need to take a look at a few things. First, make sure that you turn on or check the state-driven, as you can see by the first arrow. Next, look directly below at the transition states box. You're going to select the proper workflow state you'd like for the email to generate at. If we're sticking with the example from earlier, you'll want to select the pending internal review state. Make sure that you do not select more than one workflow state as well. This is important because the email will not generate at all if multiple states are selected. Then you're going to want to make sure to select a recipient, whether it's from the hard-coded recipient list or the related user selector. If no recipients are selected at all, the email will not generate. If you only select someone as a CC or carbon copy, the email will not generate. The most popular option here is the related user selector. This gives you the most flexibility. This will allow you to send the email to the primary contact listed on the request, as well as other related users of the request. This holds true for every type of email alert in Flux. And that's pretty much all that's needed to create a state-based email. Not bad, right? Pretty easy. All right, so let's move on to time-based email alerts. These are going to be configured in the same section as the state-based emails. However, this is going to be exclusively for the request report model. So you'll want to select that model type when you're in the admin panel. It's a great way to remind your grantees that they have reports due soon, or that they've had a report in the past that they've yet to submit. So like state-based emails, we're going to start out by clicking the new email alert button on the bottom, as you see there, and then give it a name for the email and select the recipients. Once you've got the easy stuff out of the way, let's get into how to configure a time-based email. Time-based emails are usually in correlation to the date that you enter in the due at field on the report. This is configurable by the date type dropdown. You can also configure these emails to correlate to the approved date of the parent grant record. But the most commonly used configuration is based off of the due date of the report itself. After that is selected, this date gives the email all the information it needs to create the following time-based filters. You have due within, which allows you to send an email reminder to grantees that the report is due within a configurable amount of days. In this example, the email will remind the grantee when a report is due within 2 weeks or 14 days. Then you have overdue by, which would send an email when a report is not submitted after a set amount of days after the date entered in the due at. One thing to keep in mind is the request is granted checkbox. This is something that's often brought up in support tickets. If the related application has been promoted to the granted state, this must be checked. Otherwise, the email will not generate. You'll also want to select the report type here, which will simply pull the different report themes that you've configured into your system. After you've set these up, your time-based email is ready for showtime. Now that we've learned how to configure both state-based and time-based emails, let's take a look at how we can filter both of these alerts to make more specific emails. So in this example, we're going to go back to our state-driven alert. Just below the recipient section, you'll see the different filters that you can apply to the alert. Let's go over them one by one, excluding the status filter. For state-based emails, this would be a bit redundant. So first off, the option that we have is to select a specific program. So this email would only trigger if the request hits the configured state and is in the selected program. The next option is the type filter, which gives you the option to select which theme that you'd like to see the email trigger for. This is one of the most commonly used filters, which is why I'm using it in our example. As you can see, I've selected my grant application theme here. So this email would only trigger if the record hits the configured state and is of the grant application theme. The next filter is the program lead filter. This would pull a list of users that have the employee profile. If a user were here, if a user were to be selected here, the email would only trigger if the record hits the configured workflow state and the user selected is the program lead of the request. The next filter is the funding source filter. This pulls in the configured funding sources. Like the previous filters, the email would only trigger if the record hits the configured workflow state and has a specific funding source that is selected in this filter. And this is the filter for the spending year. And I'm sure you've guessed it by now. This would make it so the email only triggers if the record hits the configured workflow state and has the proper spending year. The date range selector will allow you to filter the email to only trigger if the request is in a specific date range based on funding agreement, grant start, grant end, created at, or received at. All right, so at this point, we've learned how to build the emails so that they trigger when a record meets a certain criteria. Now let's take a quick look at how to create the content that your grantees would ultimately receive. Again, we're going to go back to our state-driven email, but this time we're going to click on the edit text link that I have annotated here by the arrow. This may be deceiving at first as the link looks like it's just simple black text, but once you hover the mouse over it, you'll be able to see that it's actually a link. So let's go ahead and click into that to take a quick look at the text editor. As you can see, clicking the edit text link brings up that text editor that we're all familiar with. Here you can enter the text that will comprise the body of the email alert. You can use the formatting options to properly style the text to your liking. The formatting tools here are similar to the rich text editor that you may or may not be using in your grant request or report forms. So we're going to quickly go over the 5 buttons at the top of the text editor. The first option here is for the field. This would allow you to insert data entered into a specific field on that related request or report record of the email. This is also known as liquid code. Most clients use Liquid to build custom emails that would be smart enough to enter grantee-specific information on a record-by-record basis. We won't go over Liquid code today, as there's enough to learn about Liquid code to fill a completely separate webinar. If this is something that you are interested in learning about, let us know in the community site. We have a suggestion box there that will help us decide what webinars to build. So if you'd like us to create an entire webinar to go over Liquid code, that's the place to tell us. All right, so moving on, next we have the table functionality. This also uses Liquid, but essentially helps you to build a nice, neat table that contains data entered into a specific field on the related request or report record. The document type allows you to add one of your configured docs in the card documents section of the email. The Liquid block tag is another function that helps you insert Liquid code, but this allows you to add conditional if statements. Again, we can go over conditionals in a Liquid code standalone webinar if you're interested in learning more. The last button here is probably the most used button in the text editor. That's the raw view. This is where you would enter Liquid code and HTML formatting directly. These buttons do help with entering valuable data into your email, but it is easy to mess up formatting by using the front end to enter the data. So Liquid code uses a lot of characters to properly call data. So if you're interested in creating heavily customized emails, we suggest that you do so in the raw view. Let's take a look at what the raw view would look like with both standard text and Liquid code. As you can see here, you're able to see the raw view of all the text, HTML formatting, and Liquid code. It's easier to tell where you're adding a paragraph or break tag to without accidentally ruining your Liquid code. This may seem like gibberish now, but once you've picked up Liquid code, this view will give you more peace of mind when you're editing your emails. All right, the last thing that we're going to go over today is the queue. This is a great place to see what emails have been generated and who it's being sent to. As you can see from the top of the queue, there's a way to filter for this. You have alert types, which is which card model that they're attached to, the specific alert itself, and what state they're in. The states are correlated to whether or not the email has been sent. If the email is in a queued state, they have generated but not sent. To send these emails, check the box next to that specific alert and head down here. And then you'll hit that drop down and select Approve and Send. And then you're going to click Run Action. Once you've done this, the status of the alert should change from approved and then sent when the system has sent the email to the recipients. Now, there is a way to have emails automatically approve and send without manual admin action. However, this isn't always recommended as mistakes do happen, and incorrect emails can be sent to grantees without having a chance to filter these out. You can find that setting under Admin Panel, Global Settings, General Settings, and then just search for the automatically approved queued alert emails. If you just go into that general settings and do a Command F and search for automatically, it should help drill you right there. All right, now that's going to pretty much wrap it up for the overview portion of today's webinar. We're going to take a look at some of the questions that have come in. So let's see here. The first one I have is, I was testing email alerts on our pre-prod, and I'm seeing the emails generate in the queue. However, I never received the email alert. Is this a known glitch for emails in pre-prod? Well, you know what? That's a great question. And first of all, I love that you're testing and practicing in pre-prod. We highly recommend that. However, that is actually intended functionality. We make it so that the email alerts generate in pre-prod so you can see if it actually triggers, but it will never send. This makes it so you don't accidentally send emails from your pre-prod to clients, causing confusion or whoever it may be. Great question. So let's take a look at another one here. Let's see here. I want to have email alerts for my LOI, but it's not generating. I've selected the proper workflow state in the LOI and turned on state driven. What's going on? What could be wrong? Great question as well. And for those of you, LOIs are like a letter of intent. A lot of you may be using different terminology for that, but it's kind of a registration, or LOI could be used interchangeably. One thing that people always miss, including us here at support, is how you select the recipients for the LOI email alert. You would not want to select primary contact in this case. You would select LOI email. Give that a try. If you're still seeing that the email does not generate, go ahead and give us a call or contact us here at support and we'll take a look at it. All right, I'm going to take a look at another question here. Is it possible to make a time-based email based on something other than a due date of a report? When a grantee submits a report, we assign an internal staff person to review it and a due date of the staff review. We would like staff to get an alert telling them that the report review is overdue. Is this possible? That's a great question. This does depend. If you have a dynamic field that shows this date, like staff due date, then you can go ahead and do an advanced filter on the email alert based on this field. You can make an email alert trigger based off of any condition, much like filtering a card. Using the advanced filters on the email, you can set it to any condition. Once those conditions are met, the email will trigger. Great question. Let's see what we have here. I have another one here. Every email alert that I get gets sent automatically. Is there a way for it not to do that? That is actually a great question. We touched upon that at the very end of the queue. That's going to be found in the admin panel, global settings, and then general settings. There's a toggle for automatically approve and send alerts. If you uncheck that, then the emails that trigger will go into your queue, allowing you to go ahead and review and send out accordingly manually. Okay, so we have another question here. Is there any way to see the timestamp of the email in the queue? You know, that's a great question. Yes, there is. There is a created at column in the email queue itself. Great question so far. And looks like that is it for the questions that we have so far. All right, so hopefully we're able to get all the questions covered, but let's do a quick recap before we finish up today. In today's Email Alerts Part 2 webinar, we went over how to enable alerts, state-based emails, time-based emails, filters in an email, editing the body of your email, and then managing the queue. So as always, to learn more and access the video recording of this webinar, you can always visit us at our knowledge base at flux.io/knowledge. There you're going to be able to find a list of our upcoming webinars, links to register to our future webinars, and recordings of our past webinars under training webinars. Please make sure to check out our community site though, because we'll update upcoming trainings, reminders, and also links to have you advise us on what is important for you to learn about. So we appreciate your feedback and are excited to continue these on and make them relevant to what is important in your world. And if we haven't covered something, that's a perfect opportunity like Liquid Code. Let us know, and we're happy to help out. I want to thank everybody again for joining us today, and we hope we have a chance to host you for our next training. Have a great day, everybody.